Welcome to On the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we welcome Baltimore Orioles pitcher Bryan Baker. In addition, we're going to talk a little bit about the latest news with the MLB lockout and get into some pieces that Bob, Nick, and I wrote over at BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com that looked at the Orioles depth chart for 2022. First off, though, we'll introduce tonight's guest. He is a right-handed pitcher who spent the 2021 season in the Toronto Blue Jays organization, making his major league debut with the Blue Jays last year. He was selected off waivers by the Orioles in November. He is Bryan Baker. Bryan, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. So we'll just start off with everything that's been going on with the lockout. How do you follow along with the CBA negotiations? And before the lockout started, how much contact did you have with the Orioles?
I actually, the way it worked out, whenever I was claimed, I had about, a couple of weeks before it was really a lockout. So there wasn't too much contact. And it's been pretty quiet since then. So I'm going to be a new face around for sure, and having to introduce myself and meet some people and everything. It's going to be fun. But yeah, as far as the CBA stuff, it's I'm just down here in Palm Beach Gardens. That's where I come every off season to train, and just kind of participating in an extended off season right now. So I'm just staying ready. So I'm ready to play when everybody else is.
So how frustrating has it been for you? Because having 2020 wiped away because of the pandemic, and then 2021, I think your spring training started out with you were a little banged up then. Now 2020, you got this lockout. You're a brand new organization, and you got a pretty fantastic opportunity here to be a major contributor with the Baltimore Orioles. How frustrating is that for you?
It's definitely something that's crossed my mind for sure. I mean, the last 2 years in general, just without even taking in this current lockout, has been an absolute roller coaster for me. I mean, right in my age 25, 26 season. So it's like kind of right when you're supposed to be in your prime, I guess, as a lot of people would say. But yeah, it's stuff that I can't really control for the most part. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, it's definitely frustrating as a competitor when you just want to kind of get out there and have a regular season on time and everything kind of goes smoothly, but that's typically not the way it works.
You can't have that anymore. You mentioned you're a fresh face for the Orioles. You will be once spring training eventually gets started, and same with Orioles fans. So I mean, unless they watched you in your only major league appearance September 5th against Oakland, how would you best describe your pitching style and the types of pitches you throw, to just give our listeners a better idea what to expect when they see you on the mound?
Yeah, so the last couple of years, I've been a back end reliever for the most part. I'm right-handed, power pitcher, try to go right at guys, fastball up in the zone a lot, and then changeup's probably my best secondary, and kind of a newer slider that came a long way last year. So it's like a four-seam changeup and then a slider.
Were you surprised last year? Once we saw that the Orioles acclaimed you, of course, us as fans, we go right to your stat pages and look up the numbers, and they were fantastic last year in AAA. Were you surprised that you didn't get more run at the major league level, considering some of those numbers you put up?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Being that was kind of my second stint in AAA. I kind of got up there right before in 2019 before the COVID season, but it's crazy once you get there. It's you do your best no matter what, and kind of wait for that opportunity, and you really have no idea when it's ever going to pop up. So yeah, it's definitely hard to stay patient at times, but yeah, I was just super glad to get the opportunity in general. It was awesome.
Nick mentioned that your numbers were excellent last year at AAA Buffalo, and one of the things that really stands out is that you really cut back on your walks. Was that a real focus for you going into 2021, and what did you work on during the season to continue that improvement?
Yeah, I'd say that was like kind of the main focus. Just staying healthy and pounding the strike zone, which they kind of go hand in hand because especially like you said, coming into last spring training, kind of had a little setback with my arm, and then the whole rehab process to get back. And then I was healthy right as the AAA season started last year. So it was just a focus in general. Just because I know I can trust my stuff just to make sure to put it over the plate and make the hitters beat me. That's just kind of the mentality that I adopted and found some success with. So I just try to attack, and then get away from those bad counts and those walks.
Yeah, so it seems like if you just look at the batting average against the batters, seemingly have just a very hard time making solid contact. There must be some kind of hop on your fastball that's just they can't hit it. What would you attribute that to?
Yeah, I don't know. It actually used to be considered flat just because back in the day before all this advanced data and everything, I was told to throw the fastball down and it didn't play as well until I kind of just started figuring out that I could throw it higher and it typically plays a little better. So that was a turning point. And then switching from a starter to reliever early in the minors kind of changed my mentality in general, and the stuff kind of had an uptick just from that switch, just from a mentality standpoint. And then was able to kind of experiment a little more and then throw that high fastball a little more. I kind of have some cut on it sometimes. So I think I might get lucky and miss a barrel here or there just with some accidental cut as well on the fastball. So I'll take it.
And you do always hear about how, a player moves from starter to reliever and then, the stuff ticks up, whether it's fastball velocity, movement. What do you think that comes from? Just the adrenaline from coming in an important situation in the middle of the game versus, going through just a routine?
Yeah, it's really hard to explain and until you've really done both for a little while. And I was a starter my whole life until I got to play in the Cape Cod League after my sophomore year of college. And I had like a 2-week kind of tryout thing, and it was the only innings I could get were out of the pen. So it was kind of the first time. So I got to experience it a little bit there, and I really liked it. And then I went back to school for junior year, still starter, and then starter all the way through rookie ball, and then made the switch in low A when I was with the Rockies. But yeah, it's a completely different game. You're not worrying about rolling through the order a couple times. You don't really have to save any energy or anything. It's kind of everything you got for that 1 or 2 innings, whatever it may be. So yeah, I think that was the biggest change in general, to where I feel like I could kind of let loose a little more and then just kind of tap into that adrenaline, especially in those bigger situations when you don't necessarily get in those as much as a starter, or it's not as late in the game with traffic on the bases and you need a big out. So it's gets the heart beating a little faster. It's pretty nice to have that little natural boost.
I feel like it takes a special breed of pitcher to come out of the pen in those high leverage situations, especially with guys on base and game on the line. I love it. That's why I love relief pitchers so much, bullpen guys, because there's always something that makes you guys unique in some way, I feel like. But I was reading an interview. An interview you did last year when you were with Buffalo, and you talked about one of the more difficult aspects of transitioning from starter to reliever was that process of developing a routine. And we kind of always hear that, well, if this guy just moves to the bullpen, everything's going to play up and he can be successful there. But, what is that process like for someone who came up through baseball as a starter?
Yeah, that's the flip side of exactly what I was just talking about. It's nice to have the adrenaline and all that stuff going for you. You only have to throw, an inning or 2 at a time. But that structured routine, like when you get used to it as a starter, it's really nice to have, everything planned out exactly the way you really want it to go. You can recover and you have the set plan. And with being a reliever, all that's completely out the door. So yeah, it was a huge transition period, and it's a constant work in progress, because you never know if you're going to go back-to-back days or throw 3 out of 4 games or whatever it may be. You might throw once and then not throw for another 7 days, depending on the situations. But yeah, it's on that side of things. It's definitely much more difficult because your routine is really dependent on when you're getting appearances and stuff. So that is the difficult part of it. But kind of having a set base routine you can kind of go through each day, at least for me, like prep wise, and then really just listen to my arm in terms of workload and in terms of how much I want to throw that day prior to the game plays a lot more into being a reliever and being ready to go whenever your name's called.
Going back to when you made that jump from the Rockies to the Blue Jays organization when the trade happened, looking at your numbers, it seemed like after you joined Toronto's organization, you kind of really started to take off with the Blue Jays. Was there something that the Blue Jays did to help unlock something in your game to help you take off, or was that just more of like maturing as a pitcher out there on the mound?
I think it's probably a combination of both. The Blue Jays kind of allowed me to be more myself in terms of finding that kind of the way to attack hitters just completely differently, especially in my first couple of years as a starter when I was 89, 92, just kind of played totally differently. And then as the velo went up, I could start using it in different ways. But and then just learning to throw strikes. That's the important piece in all of it. But yeah, I've certainly both played into my development over the last few years.
As someone who's gone through a velo, who's seen their fastball velocity spike as much as you have, I'd be curious to get your perspective on this, because for a long time it seemed like the adage was that you can't teach velocity. Yet now we're seeing pitchers really develop their fastball, get their velocity up, sometimes in the course of an off season. What kind of work did you have to put into your routine to get that spike to happen?
I think it kind of came from a lot of different things. I think just being going from the college ranks into being a professional, you just have, everything you're doing is dedicated to your routine, your mechanics, everything, all the above. So just in general, over the years, everything's kind of going to get smoother, and you're going to kind of find some things that are going to allow you to throw the ball harder, throw the ball more accurately. But just everything combined, kind of accumulating over the years. So I think working out here at Cressy Sports Performance, where I worked out for the last 5 off seasons, just getting strong, getting flexible, and it's honestly a bunch of different things. And then picking brains of pitching coaches along the way, making little tweaks here and there. I think I didn't really have a huge jump. It was kind of gradual and finding something here and there that works for me. And then the jump, I'd say just the jump from being a reliever or being a starter to a reliever was the biggest actual notice, well, okay, this, and now I'm throwing this hard. All the other stuff is kind of just kind of accumulated, like I said, over the years.
Was there a pitching coach or pitching coaches along the way that have been really instrumental for your development?
Yeah, so many. I like I said, I've been here at Cressy in the off season for the past 4 or 5 off seasons, and I've been working with my buddy Brian Kaplan for every off season. So every from October to February for the past 4 or 5 years, it's been mainly him, and then obviously with the Rockies and Blue Jays, it's been the pitching coaches at each level. Everybody's kind of helped in their own way. It's great to just being able to pick people's brains and pick up different things here and there. But yeah, I owe a lot of my successes to those guys.
I think you're gonna like Chris Holt, Darren Holmes, and Justin Ramsey here as well. Going back to your college days at North Florida, 2 of your teammates were also in the A-Sun at Jacksonville, Austin Hayes and Michael Bauman with the Orioles. Now, do you have any recollection of facing Hayes at any point, or were you familiar with them at the time?
Yeah, definitely. Those were obviously 2 really good players, and they were our crosstown rivals. So we played a good bit and had some good series over the years. Hayes, yeah, I remember facing Hayes several times, and facing off against Bauman actually when I was a starter facing him at Jacksonville. So yeah, it'll be fun to kind of reminisce on some of those times. I think we got the better of JU whenever we played them for the most part when I was there, so I can kind of have the upper hand there in those talks.
Yeah, rub it in for sure. How much?
I will say, I think Austin Hayes might have the best outfield arm I've ever seen in person. So it'll be fun to see that more often.
He's definitely got a cannon out there.
Good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much do you know about fellow Oriole reliever Felix Bautista? Because you guys have similar profiles as far as, walks a little bit higher, but batting average against and hits against very low. And I've already personally started calling you guys the Bash Brothers just because you're intimidating stature on the mound. You're both mountains of men. So what do you think about him?
I honestly haven't seen or heard much from anybody over on the new team. So I'm gonna have to get to know the fellow Bash brother. But yeah, I haven't heard much.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like the Orioles definitely have a new type that they go after when they're looking at pitchers. It's tall guys who can blow guys away. That's for sure. There are going to be a lot of you in the organization now. But looking at some of the changes in the game more recently, have you pitched with the automatic ball strike zone thing yet? Have you had an opportunity to work with that at all?
No.
What are your thoughts on that?
I'm pretty old school with everything. I'd say the umpire has always been there, and we can adjust to the umpire. I think everything kind of balances out. I'm old school. I'm all for the umpire.
What about
I'm not dropping like a 12-6 that can like clip the bottom of the zone either. So it's kind of different for different guys, I'm sure.
What about things like the shift? I imagine that as like a pitcher, is that something that's really helped you out, or is that something that's too like more old school where you as a fan, take a step back as a fan, would you like to see more balls in play there like that, or as a pitcher, you're just like, no, bring it to me, help me out.
I'd say I'm pretty old school on that too, but I mean, there's numbers to support, certain guys are going to hit the ball to this side of the field a certain percentage of the time. I get that, but I tell you, I mean, when you give up a chopper, to when somebody's normally playing and there's nobody there and it's a base hit, that's something that's pitcher. You're like, dang, like, man, why can't we just play normal? But yeah, there's definitely a place for it. Actually, there hasn't been too many. Through the minors, we started doing it a little bit in AAA. Really, is kind of the only place I've seen it. So I haven't seen it too much, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it's kind of the same with the umpire in my view. Like everything kind of balances out. But I mean, there's definitely those guys, those big lefties that they just shift everybody over, and it seems to work a good bit. I understand it, but yeah, I haven't had too much experience with it yet.
Speaking of analytics, are you someone that in between your appearances, you're looking at the data, or are you just going off your gut feel and you just know when you have it, when you don't? Like, how do you make those adjustments?
Yeah, it's definitely something. It's a tool. I mean, everything available to us now, it's like seems like it's growing by the day. It's kind of hard to sift through, everything that kind of you need or that you could look at that's influencing your game. So I think you can definitely get lost in it too. So I think guys can get kind of wrapped up in those numbers and kind of forget about what they're doing in between the lines. And are they getting 3 outs before they score a run? That's kind of the way I view things a lot of the time. But yeah, there's definitely been times where I want to tweak something. I know last year with my slider, we were trying to hammer out something that had a little bit more depth, just because I kind of started with a cutter grip. So there's definitely a place for it. I think that was a pitch that came the longest way for me last year. I obviously used a lot of the data for that. So there's definitely a place for it, but and there's definitely the other side of things too, where you can kind of get wrapped up in it, trying to do too much and forget about, throwing the ball over the plate and getting 3 outs.
Looking at that end of it, the analytics, obviously you haven't had a chance to really get into what the Orioles do, but how do the Rockies and the Blue Jays compare in those areas?
Well, I think it just kind of happened to be as time went on, it's going to be better as the years go on. So just strictly from the fact that I was with the Blue Jays more recently, I think we used it a little bit more just because there was a little more available. But and I think with the Rockies, I was just total throw my fastball down. So clearly the hop or whatever you want to call it wasn't really a focus. So I guess with the Blue Jays, they did embrace that. So just from that side, I think it's definitely more in the last couple of years.
When you get up, because let's face it, we're big fans of yours now, and hopping on here with us, and we're pulling for you. So when you are a regular in the Orioles bullpen, you're going to face the Blue Jays a lot next year, hopefully. Are there any guys over there that you're looking forward to facing off against and sitting them down with a strikeout?
Well, I wish I could face my pitcher buddies and I could talk some smack to them, because that'd be an easy out. But I spent a lot more time with the pitchers, especially a couple of my buddies that were kind of up and down last year. But just being up there for that week or so and from spring training and all the other camps and stuff, it's going to be a tough lineup to face. They're really, really talented, and I've seen it firsthand. But honestly, anybody that presents a big challenge, I'm always looking to go right at somebody. So honestly, everybody, I'm looking forward to facing them for sure.
Anyone that's a son of a former MLB All-Star, right?
yeah. So half the team.
Was there, when you got that little bit of time up there in spring training with the Blue Jays, or maybe guys that came down on rehab appearances when you were in AAA, were there any veteran guys, pitchers specifically, that you were able to really pick their brains on a lot and learn something from?
Oh gosh, yeah, for sure. That's one thing I just love about the baseball family in general is you can pick some brains of guys that have gone through what you've gone through and a lot more. And it's the same thing down here in the off season. I work out with guys that have, countless years of big league experience. So I'm blessed to be able to pick their brains as well. But with the Blue Jays, just this past year, we had a lot of guys coming down for rehab, and we even signed John Axford, and he was in AAA with us for a little bit. And that's who kind of sticks out to me, just because we were similar kind of stylistically, and I could pick his brain, and we're just kind of worked out perfectly. Just similar in stature, kind of similar with our stuff, and was able to pick his brain on different things and just different cues, especially for larger human beings. It's easy to get out of whack with your mechanics. So just being a big goofy guy, he kind of paved the way for me to find a couple cues to help me out.
Well, Brian, we really appreciate you joining us, and we definitely look forward to seeing you on the mound this year. What are going to be your big priorities for the 2022 season once it gets started?
Big priorities on the mound, you're saying?
Yes.
Well, exactly what you were saying earlier, just going right at people, and just building off of the kind of foundation that I started last year with a pretty good year. I think just going right at guys and making them beat me is the biggest key to my game, and I'm gonna keep using that mentality going forward.
We'll call it shake and bake, just like your Twitter handle.
Love it.
All right, well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Look forward to seeing you out there this year.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much.
That was Brian Baker, reliever for the Baltimore Orioles, waiver claim from the Toronto Blue Jays over the offseason, just before the beginning of the MLB lockout in early December. It's now February 28th as we're recording this, and we're still in the lockout. MLB's self-imposed deadline of today for getting the regular season started is here, and there is still no agreement. And while it's 6:57 Eastern as I speak, and there is still hours left in the day, things leading up to when we started recording this show didn't look very good. Hopefully someone listening to this later in the week is in some post-lockout baseball world. That would be great. But right now it's not looking all that good. So, Nick, I'll start with your thoughts here. CBA, we've seen negotiations drag out with some. It feels like every time you think they're starting to take a step forward, something happens and they take 3 steps back. That's kind of where I am right now, but I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, that's why I don't really pay attention to the day-to-day stuff. Like, to be honest, I can't do it. It's frustrating because, and you hear like, the interview we just did with Brian there, he's saying he just joined this organization. He's a 27-year-old reliever. He's got this opportunity now where he saw an inning of work in the major leagues last year. So I'd imagine that itch is even bigger than it was before, because now he wants to prove to everybody in this brand new organization that he can stick in the major leagues. And like, he's had very limited contact with the entire organization. So he's going to get to spring training, and then what? It's going to be the first day of school all over again whenever this thing gets going. And that's got to be frustrating for a lot of guys in Baker's situation as well. All the free agents that are still out there. And then, from Orioles, us being a minor league focused podcast, you look at guys like Kyle Braddish, DL Hall, Taron Vavra, like, they're going to be stuck doing nothing, working out on their own without direct supervision of the organization. And that's extremely frustrating. That's the most frustrating part for me. Like, I want to see these guys out there getting better, being prepared for the 2022 season, and there's nothing they can do about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've always been optimistic this whole time, just because I'm like, they just missed this pandemic season. It was 60 games. You can't do this again. I'm like, they'll wait it down to the wire, and then, something will come through that favors the owners, but it'll get done. But the point where that kind of changed for me was when the players made a new proposal, made a bunch of shifts, like hugely downgraded their asking on the percentage of the pre-arbitration players. I think it was from like 80% to 35%. And the owners come back with raising 1 year of the CBT by $1 million. And it was like, what are we doing here? They actually don't want to play for the month of April. This is insane. They're not negotiating whatsoever. So yeah, I'm pretty much just wake me up when it happens. And in the meantime, I'm just getting ready for minor league baseball.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm excited about the minor league season, but in the back of my mind, I keep thinking Taron Vavra is not going to be in the opening day lineup for the Tides if the lockout's not over. Kyle Braddish is not going to be in the opening day rotation. DL Hall's not going to be in the rotation wherever he needs to go. And it's not like somebody like Bryan Baker, who's on the 40-man roster, can just go to Norfolk and get innings while they wait for this to end. So the implications of this are big. And I'm frustrated at this point because I think that if we don't have a deal here soon, we're probably looking at a lost month because, like Bob said, the owners are willing to sacrifice April. I mean, they more or less threatened today to, delay the whole or cancel the whole first month of the season. So this is where we are right now, and I want to see a deal happen. But I just am not hopeful at this point that we're going to get the first month in.
Yeah. And that's, I saw a tweet. I don't know who put it out earlier today when, something about the players getting frustrated now, openly frustrated about this idea that the language that's being used, referring to them as, assets, pieces of a puzzle, whatever it was. I can't remember the exact tweet, but, these are guys like Baker there sitting with no paycheck. The guy he's not living off a $10 million signing bonus out of college. So he doesn't have that income coming in right now. That's why for me, like I'm 100% pro player here. And I don't see are they perfect in this situation? Is the PA perfect in this situation? No. But at the same time, I'm 100% pro player, and I hope they get everything they deserve because these guys deserve to get paid. They deserve to be treated fairly. And from the playing side of things, it's easy for us to kind of sit back and say, like, yeah, we can be excited for minor league baseball, which we are, and it's great Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Listen to our podcast. We're going to be there every single day. This is our time to shine for real now. But at the same time, like, I want to watch Major League Baseball as well. And I'm tired of this, whether it's driving fans away, whether it's hurting the players themselves. These are human beings. These are dads trying to support their family, and they can't do that right now. And it's just extremely frustrating. And it's all the owner's fault. I mean, there's really no other way to put it.
Yeah, it's a great point, Nick. And yeah, I said, wake me up when it's time. I'll just watch minor league baseball. But yeah, you're right. I want this to happen. I want to watch Adley Rutschman make his major league debut. I want to see, all these guys play. And it's just depressing to watch how it's playing out. So that's why I'm just like, let's get it done with.
Well, and I'm not going to go into the, I'll never watch baseball again territory. And I know that's not true. I mean, the three of us spend an hour to an hour and a half each Monday talking about baseball. We're not the type of people that Major League Baseball needs to worry about whether or not we're going to come back. But if you're a casual fan or you're kind of on the edge, I'm worried that this is going to, lose some people. And, I'm not oblivious to the fact that baseball has a relevance problem anyways. I might have a different opinion on why it's not as relevant as the NBA as others, but I do think it has a relevance problem, and this doesn't help. And, I was thinking about this today because I follow the NFL. I'm a Ravens fan, but I'm not as into the NFL as I am MLB. I remember the NFL lockout, and I remember the season not wanting the season to be delayed. But I don't really remember now what the core issues were. I don't remember exactly when it ended because the season started on time. And you're a more casual fan. It feels normal. So I think that having the season start on time would have been something that the league could salvage. I don't want the players to do that at their long-term expense, but you could have at least come out of this with, okay, well, we didn't lose the season. But now it looks like you're going to lose the season or part of the season.
Yeah. You just watch you watch some of the college highlights, and I know it's difficult for a lot of people to watch college baseball, but you see some of these highlights. You see the guy, was it Tommy Tanks over there at NC State. I mean, you're seeing some fantastic performances in the college ranks, and people are getting excited about it. At least in my social media bubble, like, people are getting super excited about it, which I know is a little skewed, but baseball should be capitalizing on this. Like, you're missing Mike Trout, you're missing Shohei Ohtani. From the Orioles' perspective, like, Trey Mancini, we're missing Trey Mancini and the story of Cedric Mullins. We're missing these guys, the opportunity for them to tell their story, to get out there, and a lot of just prime of their career guys that MLB already doesn't market. You're risking that even more, and this is a perfect opportunity to capitalize on this and grow the game, but it's another fumble attempt. You talking about football there. This is another fumble by Major League Baseball and the owners and Rob Manfred. It's all Rob Manfred. Let's get down to business whose fault this really is. But it is frustrating because, yeah, you do lose. I'm just speaking, like, I look at my family, like my dad, for instance, huge Orioles fan his entire life. But is he going to be as interested to watch when the season begins if it's June? I don't know. I don't know that he will be. And that's frustrating to me.
Yeah, I think I don't know if the casual fans will be lost for good, but they're not going to be in a rush to come back this season at the very least. I mean, they're going to be like, they'll find something else to watch, and then they'll get used to not watching baseball, and then they'll just not come back around to it. Maybe, come next year or the year after, they'll be like, all right, let's see what baseball's got going on. But yeah, they don't got to worry about the guys like us, but there are a lot of people that just, it's routine to have baseball on starting from April to September, and that's just what they do. And if it's gone and they find something else, then they found something else.
So Vivek here with a question. Do you guys feel the players are trying to address too much at once in this CBA negotiation? Interesting question there. I'll let Bob start with this.
Honestly, no. Joe Sheehan and a few other people out there have been great about just, saying the owners could accept exactly what the first offer the players made, and it would still be a huge win for them. And they're just not negotiating. They're not willing to budge an inch. I feel like the players have, like Nick said, they're not perfect in what they ask for and how the trickle down doesn't exactly go the way maybe you would love it to go. But they are making concessions. They are trying to get things moving by saying, okay, we'll back off of this. Okay, this is a non-starter. Okay, we can worry about that on the next negotiation. I feel like the players are the ones that are actually willing to do anything. The owners are just like, what, you want $10? Well, what about 9 plus 2? And you also have to, owe us $3 later. Like they're just like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic of their offers and trying to make it look like they're doing something.
Yeah. That question kind of points to my thoughts about all of this. Like at one point I'm saying for the players, get everything you can right now. This is your opportunity to get everything you want. Why not get it? And if you're going to miss or threaten to miss half a season or even a full season to get everything you want, how many players, I would be more interested to know from a player's perspective, like how many players would agree with that? How many of those guys are willing to sit out a full year to get everything that the PA is trying to get? Because I think from my perspective, and I'm just a fan, I don't have money on the line in this. I don't have a family to support here from baseball. For me, I would say I'm cool without watching Major League Baseball for a full year if the players win this thing and get everything that they want. But that's just my opinion. But it's really hard to decide with billionaire owners who are going to make their money regardless, even without a baseball season. They're still going to find a way to make money. So the players won't.
And I read a lot of, articles in the last week or so, and Jeff Passan had an excellent one up at ESPN today, and he reinforced the point that the players' losses have occurred over multiple collective bargaining agreements going back to, the post-94 strike discussions. So, realistically, they weren't going to make up for it. But I think at the same time, when you're in the position there that the players are in, where you don't have a lot of substantial bargaining chips on your side, you got to go for everything you can. And knowing, you're probably not going to get everything this time around. But it also took the owners 20 plus years to, drastically tilt the scales in their favor. So the players got to step in now and start setting a precedent, I think, for, fairer negotiations going forward. And, I'm getting way off into the future here, but 32 teams is going to happen. And a lot of things in the sport are going to be reevaluated then. And I think the players, when that time comes, need to be in a stronger position than they are right now.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just a great point out. I don't know how to follow up on that exactly, but just look at the way the media coverage is on this versus the last few times anything like this has come up. I mean, this is so firmly against what MLB owners and Rob Manfred are doing. Every article you see, Rosenthal, Passan, like you said, even Bob Nightingale's kind of like, he's a little bit negative on what's going on there. So everything seems to be painting MLB in a terrible light, as it should, which, I'm sure, there's always going to be people out there that just say, oh, millionaires versus billionaires, whatever. But, those people are kind of a lost cause. So at least we're seeing the media portray it correctly for the most part.
Yeah, it's, I want baseball, but these guys deserve a piece of the pie, as well. And I think the only thing that I would like to see more of, and it's not going to be addressed with this, but I feel like at the end of the day, one thing that continues to get passed by over are the minor leaguers as well. What are they going to get out of this? It doesn't seem like they're going to get much of anything, which is frustrating as well. And I guess that's a whole podcast series in of itself. I think.
Yeah, even the manipulation of the service time. There it is, service time manipulation. Even that, their answer was the top. If you finish first or second rookie of the year, then you get your year back. Like, that's what we're doing here. That's the only answer. I don't know.
This angle has been played out. I've heard this discussed a lot in kind of baseball media circles. I think that there is merit to having the, awards basically incentivize, or placement awards incentivize teams. But I also don't know how I feel about that when you have writers voting on the process. I wouldn't feel entirely comfortable voting on Rookie of the Year anymore if I knew it could be the difference, second or third could be the difference between a player getting an extra year of service time or not. And I'd be curious to hear the perspective of someone who has voted on these awards before, because that would feel really uncomfortable to me.
Well, I don't know. What was it that they were talking about tying to, like, Fangraphs WAR, whatever that was? And Eric Longenhagen was on, I don't know if it was Effectively Wild or Kevin Goldstein's podcast, Chin Music, but he was on there and he was like, look, I make these lists over at Fangraphs. And so like, if he's going to vote for that, he's like, I'm going to give it to the kid who needs the bonus check. Like, I'm going to throw my vote personally where I want to see that money go, right? Or I'm going to skew this how I see fit. And like a lot of writers are going to do that. And then you just have a lot of clueless writers out there who are going to vote for whoever they want to anyway, without actually looking at any numbers or anything. Or they're going to say who has the highest batting average, and that's going to be their vote there. But yeah, that's all ridiculous to me because, again, those writers are human beings and they're just going to kind of vote how they feel or they're going to vote to fill their own agenda, which, again, how do you stop that?
And if anything, isn't tying it to Rookie of the Year going to just make teams want to keep players down longer so that they're not a front runner for the award anymore because they can only accumulate so many stats in X amount of time? I mean, I just feel like there's so many holes. Like, just make it, if you play in the major leagues, that it counts as a year, period. That's it.
That's a great point, Bob, because think about last year's American League Rookie of the Year race. I mean, don't you feel like Wander Franco would have won that award if he had been up earlier in the
Running
year?
away easily.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we just get rid of the minor leagues, right? Forget them all.
Yeah, start cutting them one at a time, apparently. Jeez Louise.
Yeah. It's I don't know. Part of me still wants to remain optimistic and say that even if it's 150 game season or 145 game season, we'll get it. But yeah, as the day goes on more recently, I get more and more pessimistic about that view. But at the same time, again, I have that part of me that tugs at me and says, well, that's okay because I want the players to win. But we'll see. There's minor league baseball, there's college baseball, there's independent league baseball. All that's still going on. Support it. Orioles fans are pretty lucky in that there are a lot of minor league affiliates within a very, very close drive. So go check out those affiliates. Go to a Bowie Bay Sox game.
Yeah, I'm lining up if I can make it to Norfolk April 5th. Let's go. Grayson to Adley. I'm there.
So we got a question here from Added, and we'll use this to kind of transition into our discussion of the Orioles 2022 depth chart. But how legitimate are the Orioles interested in offering Carlos Correa a 10-year, $350 million deal? It feels very Machado Padres timing to me. Also, who gets impacted more, Henderson or Westbrook, with this idea? So take the first part of that question. There was a report that I believe came out today from a Spanish language outlet that linked the Orioles to Carlos Correa. Now, I'm just going to say full disclosure, I don't speak Spanish. I saw an English translated version of the article that I'm not confident was completely well translated. So I'm not going to weigh in on the merits of the report so much, but instead just kind of get to the idea of Carlos Correa, 10 years, $350 million. Bob, are you even considering this seriously? Or
I called it last week. I think I made a mention of, as soon as the lockout's over, Correa signed. Hey, I would love it. I would love nothing more than this to be 100% accurate, and Orioles going to do whatever it takes to get Correa in here and be the mainstay at shortstop for as long as he can be, and then shift over to third base to really jumpstart this rebuild. And it does make a lot of sense, like Adit mentioned, like a Manny Machado type thing with the Padres. But at the same time, I mean, he's going to have a lot of competition for his services. And I do think the Orioles will spend money. I'm not sure if this is the way it's going to happen or it's going to start. I don't see them plucking down $350 plus million on one guy. So it doesn't really change my confidence level of anything like this happening, but God, would it be awesome if it did?
Yeah. The feeling Machado to Padres vibes, like Padres went after, they got Eric Hosmer first for like, what was that, $100-something million? That was their first big splash, and the Orioles haven't done that yet. So I don't know if jumping to the $350 million bat right now would make a ton of sense. If the Orioles do it, I said before we hopped on air that I will buy season tickets and make the 8-hour round trip drive for every single home game. If the Orioles actually do this, hope somebody's going to screenshot that and save that. Now I'm going to have to live up to that. But I would love that. Yeah. I would love for that to happen, but I just don't see it this year. Next offseason, I hope so. I hope we're trading prospects. I hope we're signing free agents, and I hope we're going for it. When there's 25 teams make the playoffs next year, 26 teams make the playoffs next year at this rate, then yeah, you go for it. But this year, I just don't see that happening. And we'll see over the next 24 or 48 hours if any other reports come out about this as well. But
yeah, I don't really see it happening. And to be honest with you, as much fun as it is to kind of daydream about Carlos Correa to the Orioles, it hasn't been something that I've really entertained because, like both of you have said, I just don't know that this is the right off season for it. The way that I kind of picture the Orioles plans like changing, where they sort of switch that direction, is they'll invest in their core somewhere. That means giving a current player an extension or players. Then they'll start to make the incremental moves that make the major league roster better. Trading for bullpen help, that extra bat in the lineup wherever they need it, that extra starter that is, a better version of Jordan Lopez. And then you eventually see the big splash in trade or free agency. I just don't see them going from 1 year your big signing was Freddie Galvis to the following year bringing in Carlos Correa. I feel like there's a step there in the middle that they just haven't reached yet.
Jose Iglesias.
That's right.
I mean,
go ahead, Nick.
Say if you want to get weird with it, it's we're still locked out here, so let's go with it. Let's say this was a serious offer and there are serious discussions going on. First of all, I would cry, to be totally honest. But I could see where that does make sense if you're Grayson Rodriguez is the top pitching prospect in all of baseball, and over the last couple of weeks, you see more and more reports come out and other podcasts talking about these top lists, and it's mind blowing to hear other people, national outlets, talk about Grayson Rodriguez as we get closer to this season starting. And then you got Kyle Braddish. The Orioles are very high on Kyle Braddish. I know Orioles fans are kind of mixed on him, but two guys you got there. You got Adley Rutschman, who should have been in the major leagues last year. He's there. I could see in a world where, bringing in Carlos Correa shows every other free agent out there that we're going to spend the money. We're ready to compete now. You bring him in here, let him get acclimated and develop himself as the leader of this clubhouse and leader of this team. And then you build around that. You build around Carlos Correa, Adley Rutschman, Grayson Rodriguez, Ryan Mountcastle. I could see it. I mean, I'd put it 5% to it's my faith in that happening right now, but give you some fun to dream on, I guess.
Also, Adley and Grayson, these assets are going to be cheap for the next few years. So take advantage of it and spend your money somewhere else while they're cheap. And then try to extend them, or, you can work from there. So, let's make this make sense. But I do think Zach's probably right. You want to see a John Means extension, Adley Rutschman, Wander type of extension, and then kind of make a foray into more things. But hey, let's just cut to the chase. Let's sign him. Let's get him in here and let's make the playoffs. Oh, and who would be the most vulnerable person? I think we forgot that part of the question between Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg. I would say Westberg, just because at that point, I think you want to keep Gunnar with the higher upside. We've seen he can be elite at third base, according to Keith Law. So I think you keep Gunnar around in that instance, unless Westberg really comes on strong, and then Gunnar has more trade value, then maybe it goes that way.
I'm going neither. I'm going to get weird with this. Westbrook's going to be at second base. Correa at short, Gunnar at third, and Kobe Mayo with a rocket for an arm in right field, or Gunnar in right field and Mayo at third.
You hear
I'm
this?
just gonna get weird with this.
Putting him in outfield, I don't know about that. In that situation, I think it would be warranted. But.
Yeah. I mean, or that could be Mayo is getting all this hype. Mayo could be the kid that gets shipped off in that scenario. If I don't want that at all. But if you're talking about Jordan Westbrook, Gunnar Henderson, Kobe Mayo, if I can only have one of those three pan out, I'm going to pick Kobe Mayo. That's just me personally. I love all 3, but I love Kobe Mayo just a little bit more. But yeah, I think, and that's it for Vivek's question. I don't know. I think Jordan Westbrook could be a really solid second baseman who puts up really good offensive numbers for a second baseman. And Gunnar Henderson brings that trade value. I think he could really help you headline a package to bring in a fantastic starting pitcher. So I think if this whole scenario played out like that, maybe Gunnar's the more vulnerable there. I don't know.
So a follow-up question here from Yanni, another listener. Any chance Correa chooses the Orioles because of the Astros connection? Mike Elias was there when the Astros drafted Carlos Correa. There's some other front office members who came over from Houston, including Sigmund Dahl and Eve Rosenbaum. So do either one of you think that has merit?
I think tie goes to the runner, maybe in that instance. Like, he does have familiarity with definitely mispronounced that, familiarity with Elias and Sig and all them. So, I mean, he has to feel good about them if he does come here. But yeah, like I said, I think it'd be more like, same offer. Which way do I go? I trust Mike and company, so maybe I'll lean that way. But that's about it.
Yeah, I'd say that's the same. He's gonna go wherever he gets the most money, first and foremost. And I don't know, does he have a family? I don't know that whole situation. He's got the rings, so like, where does his family want to go? Where does he want to build that and lay that foundation for the next couple of years? That's going to play a big role as well. You hear all the time about why it's hard for the Blue Jays and Seattle Mariners to draw free agents because of their location a lot of times. So that's going to be first and foremost. But yeah, I think if it's close, sure, why not go with the guys you trust to help bring you up and help make you the player you are today?
So we'll transition now over to our latest stories over at BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com. Bob, Nick, and I did a series where we looked at the Orioles' 2022 depth chart. We each took an area of the team and wrote about it. I wrote about the catching and infield situation. Nick did the pitchers, which we'll get into in a minute, both the rotation and the bullpen. But Bob had the outfield, which seems to be the area of the team that has the most depth throughout the organization, and that is pretty set coming into 2022. So, Bob, what are your impressions on this group?
I think the outfield's strong right now for the Orioles. As we know, we got Santander, Hayes, Mullins, as starter. Ryan McKenna, the incomparable DJ Stewart is out there. But we know that the outfield is definitely the deepest when it comes to prospects as well. With we drafted 18 of them in this past draft, I think it was, and yeah, I mean, we're loaded. We did our little draft on Locked On Orioles with the minor league draft, and just from the prep work, it was like, oh, don't got to worry about outfield. I'll be covered no matter what. Whether I wait till my last 3 picks to make it, I'll feel pretty good about it. So a lot of depth in the outfield, which is good because there's 3 spots you can fit people out there. So a little more versatility, and cream rises to the crop.
Yeah, and for me, when I look at the outfield, like, I'm still excited about. Obviously, I'm excited about Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes, but you look out there, and then everyone is worth being excited about. There's one guy, DJ Stewart, and he can go. But other than that, like, there's still a lot of promise. Even Santander. I mean, Orioles fans really love Santander. I don't hate the guy. I just need him to get on base and stay healthy. But he's still a really intriguing option, I think. I think for me, though, like, I'm looking at Kyle Stowers first and foremost. I want to see, does he break into that line? When does he break into that lineup? And what do his numbers at the major league level look like? Are the strikeouts going to be way too much? Is he not going to be able to hit for high enough average? What's he going to look like in the major leagues? And can a guy like Robert Newstrom break in? Or is it just too much depth for a guy like Newstrom to break through? I don't know. But the outfield is definitely a lot of fun. And you got a new dimension to help throw a little wrench in all of it. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Stowers, and I think we'll see him sometime this summer. There are questions about how he's going to look in the majors, but I think he'll look good. And look, Santander is a good player when he's on the field. He just has to stay healthy, and the same goes for Austin Hayes. And I like, Bob, that you mentioned Zach Watson at the end of the article, because even though Watson is behind some players right now, there's still that high upside 2020 potential that we talk about all the time. And with the new dimensions, maybe there's an opening for him to get some time in left field this year, depending on probably the health of Santander and Hayes more than anything. But it feels like that there could be an opening for Watson this year, to put it that way.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, he should start the year at AAA Norfolk, and then you're just an injury away, a trade away from at least getting your feet wet at the major league level. And he's just, like we've talked about a lot, he might not be this complete player that's going to be a starting center fielder, getting on base and all this stuff, but he has the tools that are going to be valuable to a major league team for a pretty long time. I mean, can really chase it down in the outfield, great defense out there, power, speed. He's going to be valuable even if it's not as a full timer. So yeah, could definitely see him get some run here at the end of the year.
Are either of you legitimately excited about Ryan McKenna still?
I don't know about excited, but I am intrigued just because the numbers he put up at Norfolk. Yeah, I know it could just be like his hottest stretch of a season there because it wasn't much sample, but man, he killed the ball in a pitcher's park in Norfolk and just could not get a rhythm at the major league level. So I would say I want to see him get like 200, 300 at bats this year.
Yeah, I'm just on the same page as Bob. I think you just want to see him get more time. Love the defense. But yeah, he's got to hit a little bit more, and I think he needs to get at bats this year to develop as a hitter and see what he can do.
Yeah. I'm just concerned it's another DJ Stewart, Chance Sisco situation here because both those guys look like Barry Bonds down in AAA. And then we kept saying, you just need playing time in the major leagues, and Chance Sisco can break out. DJ Stewart can hold his own, and then Chance Sisco's gone. I don't know where he's at or if he's still even playing baseball at this point. And DJ Stewart is DJ Stewart. So I'm scared to see it because I had a lot of hope for Ryan McKenna like 2 years ago. But hopefully he gets some more ABs next year.
I'll just put it this way. I'd rather see him be the backup fourth outfielder than DJ Stewart again. So.
Yeah.
That's fair. And we'll go over now to pitchers. And I think we have a listener question about this. This comes from Jimmy. Bob, when do we get the steel cage match with you and Matt Sroka? So I feel like there's something I'm missing here, so you're going to have to fill me in, Bob.
Yeah, so Matt Sroka of Section 336 podcast, they were just talking on their podcast this past week and mentioned us and specifically me by name as saying, I'm probably going to hear from these guys when I say this, but, the pitching depth at the minor league level is an issue. And, just the same thing that this Dan Conley is putting out there for the past year or so. And no, I'm not going to fight Matt Sroka. He is a smart, intelligent guy. And we kind of had a little bit of a back and forth on Twitter where we kind of understood where we were coming from, but I'll save my ire for the Dan Conleys and Keith Laws of the world, who they just had the best Q&A session of any Oriole fan could ask for this past week on The Athletic. But yeah, my point was basically the Orioles have two of, including the very best pitching prospect in baseball. And, depth-wise, we might be middle of the pack, upper middle of the pack, but that's fine because the Orioles have intentionally focused on position players because they know there are other ways to acquire. That's the same things we've been saying over and over again. But, some people, they need to see it to believe it. So we'll have to see it.
I think to say that there's no pitching depth in this system, regardless of who you are, I tweeted it out. I said it's a lazy take, and it is because I watch these guys every single night, and I've watched the progression all through last season. I've watched the progression over the last 2-3 years, and it's real progression. And I think you tweeted out the clip as well when Kevin Goldstein and Eric Longenhagen were on the Effectively Wild podcast talking about Prospect Week over at Fangraphs. And Goldstein said when they released the Orioles list that someone responded like, well, I only see like 5 guys on this prospect list that could be in the major league rotation. And Goldstein's like, well, yeah, that's freaking awesome. If you get 5 of these guys in a major league rotation, that's what every team dreams of. And that's what the Orioles have here. They got about 15 guys that could be legitimate major league starters. And I also hate this whole, he's probably just a back end of rotation starter guy. 40% of all major league starting pitchers are back of the rotation starters. So yeah, look, I want this season to start so bad. I want Drew Rom in the major leagues by the end of the year to pan out so bad. I want Zach Peak striking out 45% of the hitters next year because I'm just so tired of all these takes on Orioles pitchers.
Yeah, if you want to get us fired up, all you got to do is talk about the lack of pitching depth because it really does get me going.
I don't read The Athletic. I don't read The Athletic for that purpose. I don't care. You do go work, that's fine, but I don't care. Like, no.
Well, Nick, you had a chance to write about the pitching depth extensively, both the rotation and the bullpen. What were kind of your takeaways there?
Oh, at the major league level, it's crap. Well, let's be honest there. No, at the major league level, there is no pitching depth. Yeah, I think I said in my piece that, like, look, you've got John Means, you've got Jordan Lyles, who I think his biggest asset could be that he helps the bullpen if he can go 5-6 innings. He had a large number of starts. I don't have the number right in front of me anymore, but a large number of his starts last year. He was with Texas, right, last year, I think. That were quality starts, 6 innings, 3 or fewer runs. Say what you will about the quality start stat, but if you're the Orioles, if you get that 10, 12 times out of Jordan Lyles, then he pays for himself. But yeah, there's just a big group. And I think I saw somebody, it might have been in the Patreon chat. There's a large group there: Keegan Aiken, Michael Bauman, Alex Wells, Zach Lowther, Dean Kramer, Kyle Braddish. I just think that Aiken, Wells, Lowther, Kramer, you're not at a point where you want to give up on those guys quite yet. They've had the pandemic 2020 season messed up a lot of guys. Last year, late starts, issues there. That's going to continue to mess with the guys. It's just been a weird year, an unfortunate year, timing wise, with all these events and the Orioles being as young as they are. I think it's hurt a lot of guys. I don't know. I think there's depth there. Michael Bauman, I talked about. If you have any major takeaways about Michael Bauman after his performance in the major leagues last year, I don't see how you could. Because we talked about last year, he had the alt-site injury. It took him a while to come back from that. I think a lot of it was more mental than actual physical, coming back from that injury. But he showed a lot of flashes, especially in AAA, of 2019 Michael Bauman. That was just dominant, who went from this guy that I wrote about, and I got a lot of positive feedback when I wrote about before the 2019 season, Michael Bauman being this, is he even a pitching prospect worth talking about? Not starter or reliever, but just a prospect that Orioles fans should care about. And he proved to everybody that he was. You saw flashes of that in 2021, and I think a full off season, he can come back strong in 2022. I'm excited to see what he can do. And Kyle Braddish, I'm extremely excited about. I know Orioles fans have mixed reviews on him, but the Orioles seem very high on him. And he ended the year in just as dominant fashion as you could. And so I want this lockout to end, mostly because I want to watch Kyle Braddish pitch in the major leagues.
I think the taste in the major leagues that Michael Bauman had and the struggles he went through is what the Lothers and Wells of the world were missing in 2020. They didn't get that chance to come up, get lit up for a month or a few weeks, and then adjust over an off season and learn from it. I mean, yeah, it wasn't an ideal start, but he's faced major league hitters now. He got some jitters out of the way. Now he can go all off season, plan on it. If we had a freaking normal spring training, he would come in and be ready to go and compete for a rotation spot. But yeah, I think like we've said, just not having that 2020 minor league season and getting a chance to get these guys their feet wet, I think it hurt a lot of pitchers, and not just with the Orioles either. So.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these pitchers, we've talked about how we didn't like Zach Lowther's routine last year with what the Orioles did with him. And I think that, not just him, but Kramer, Aiken, Wells, Bruce Zimmerman, who was fairly effective last year, but, ultimately missed a lot of the year with injuries, deserve a little bit of an opportunity to work it out and try to develop at the major league level. The big thing for me, though, is that I go back to the bullpen. And that was an area of the team that I thought we were going to see a lot of progress last year. And I think overuse in some cases really got to these pitchers, especially in the second half. So if Jordan Lyles can help, if a healthy John Means and Jordan Lyles and just one of those pitchers can help, kind of to ease the workload of the bullpen a little bit, I think that's going to open up more opportunities, not just for hopefully a better version of Tanner Scott than what we saw for parts of last year, but for Bryan Baker or CNL Perez to come through and stick in the bullpen all year.
Yeah. Jorge Lopez. I don't think I'm alone when I'm saying that I would be legitimately excited to watch Jorge Lopez out of the bullpen across a full year. You look at pull up some of his game logs when he worked out of the pen. I know there's one game against the Angels. I think I talked about it on the show before. Like the velo, you saw like 2.5 mile an hour tick in this fastball velo. And the data on those numbers and those relief outings were just unbelievable. And we all know that once he gets through a lineup the first time, it's beautiful. And then after that, he hits the wall and he crumbles. So, yeah, it's just that rotation. There's going to be a lot of arms, and I'm interested to see how the innings get played out. But then again, like all these guys have been locked out. So what have they been doing to prepare for this? Yeah, you have the offseason gyms and programs that you can do, but they haven't been. These are young guys at a very critical point in their careers, and they haven't had that direct supervision of the organization. for big chunks of the last 2-3 years now, which has got to be extremely frustrating for every single one of those guys, especially a guy like Dean Kramer, who I'm softening up on, especially after our conversation with Nathan Ruiz last week. I do want to see him get another chance, and I am pulling for Dean Kramer. And like Ruiz said, like he looked beaten down last year in some of those interviews. And he's supposed to have no contact with the organization all offseason. So how do you help a guy like that during the winter? It's frustrating.
Yeah, it's to me. I mean, you guys have said so much good stuff about the bullpen, but to me, it's going to be interesting. Just Elias has just been basically using the guys he was handed at this point. It's going to be interesting starting this year to see some guys trickle in that he has acquired. He has, his style of relief, big, tall guys like we've talked about that have good fastballs and, like two dominant pitches and throw hard, like really hard. Like I just think, it's hard to judge, especially like we said with the starting pitchers, and you're asking Dylan Tate to throw 2-3 innings at a time and like back-to-back days, and Paul Fry. I just saw the image of him against Tampa Bay in the last few months of the season. It's like still can't believe that he was that bad. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and you got a big group there. I mean, you got Felix Bautista. I know walks are an issue, but the walks got better as he went up the ladder. You got Logan Gillespie, who it's not just the Orioles that like Gillespie. I mean, you have national evaluators who were fans of his stuff. It's just a matter of can he put it all together at the major leagues. I still like Isaac Mattson. I think he deserves a fair shot next year. I think there's going to be an interesting group, at least if there's going to be the core that you have, Wells, Tate, hopefully Fry and Scott. And then the fringe of that bullpen are going to be a lot of like up and down guys. But I feel like that fringe is a step up compared to last year. But at the end of the day, if the starters can't go only going 3 or 4 innings every start, it's meaningless because the bullpen's going to get beat to death a month into the season. So.
Yeah, and on that note, I'll go over to the part of the depth chart I covered, which was the catchers and the infielders. And
What
catchers, there's really no spoiler alert here. It's going to be Adley Rutschman at some point in 2022. It's just a question of when. I tend to think that for now, pencil in Jacob Nottingham and Anthony Benboom on the opening day roster if you don't have Rutschman there. But there's always a possibility the Orioles make a move late in the offseason once the lockout is over. And the infield, to me, seems somewhat set with the question, though, of do the Orioles go out and add a shortstop? We just spent a lot of time talking about Carlos Correa, but there are more players in that 1 year range that will probably take a deal. I don't know, just throwing numbers out here, like $4 to $8 million range. So we've seen like Elias working before. Jose Iglesias is out there. Andrelton Simmons, who would be my personal choice in that group, is out there. Jonathan Villar is out there. So there are some players on the other that when we get on the other side of the lockout, the Orioles could take a chance on. But I'll just start with Nick here. General thoughts on that group between catching and infield?
I mean, I definitely don't hate it. The Orioles offense, I feel like kept them in a lot of games last year. And for many nights, like it was fun to watch this offense. You're going to have Adley Rutschman in this lineup for sure at some point. Just a matter of when, not if. You know what you got in Ryan Mountcastle and Trey Mancini. Mancini is going to be full off season. I imagine he's going to be even healthier next year. For me, like when I'm looking at this infield, though, like what happens with third base? I joke a lot about Kelvin Gutierrez. I do love that defense, but guy can't hit anything. So what do they do at third base? And you really don't have that third base prospect to bring up. Like, is Rylan Bannon going to be a guy that contributes at all? I don't know. The most intriguing name for me, though, is going to be Jamai Jones. I am still intrigued. We'll say that, intrigued instead of excited, to see what Jamai Jones can do. You always hear about the athleticism. The athleticism is there. He can be a game changer, I think, defensively and with his speed. But can he hit the baseball? That's his biggest struggle. I don't know. We'll see in 2022, I guess.
Yeah, third base. I don't like Rougned Odor or Kelvin Gutierrez there. Maybe if you put Jorge Mateo or you sign Correa or Simmons or someone like that, you can slide Ramon Urias over to third base. I don't know if he's got quite the arm to play there full time, at least to start the year. And then you can, have Jamai Jones and a few other characters battle out for second base. Maybe Rylan Bannon get in the mix. But yeah, outside of first base, and obviously we know what we got in catcher, that infield is definitely, let's get these prospects that are right in our top 10 up as quick as possible. Huh?
I think you'll see a lot of activity there. I mean, yeah, I think there's some comments there. The Rule 5 is an option if that happens. I think I've now seen the people kind of say, well, if it happens or if it's canceled. So maybe there are even talks about them canceling the Rule 5 draft. I don't think anybody knows at this point, except we know that like scouts are being banned from the workout stadium. So other teams can't scout potential Rule 5 picks, which shout out, hi Nick Vespi, all you can there. But yeah, it's maybe you address it through the Rule 5 draft. There are some interesting options. Check out our episode with Vivek. Some great names there. Maybe there are a ton of free agents. Sign a third baseman, sign a shortstop, and then because I don't know if I particularly want to see Ramon Arias at shortstop every day. I want to see him at second base. And I think he can be a really fun tool for the Orioles next year. But sign a third baseman, sign a shortstop, and let's shore up this infield for sure.
Yeah, Ramon Arias can be a nice utility infielder in 2023, 2024 when we're in the playoffs.
Yeah, I just want to see his bat in the lineup more this year. And, I think ideally it would come at second base, but just get his bat in the lineup as often as you can. And one player I tried to talk up a little bit in the piece was Terrin Vavra because he is on the 40-man roster. He's going to need a lot of time at AAA just because he missed so much of last season. But do either of you feel like once we get to the All-Star break, you could start looking at him as a potential option at second base for the Orioles?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I definitely think so, especially if he's healthy and performing at AAA. I don't see why not.
Yeah, and I've kind of said before that I don't know if I see him as an everyday future second baseman as a major leaguer, but you mentioned in the piece here, like he's got the high on base percentages, the high walk rates all throughout the minor leagues. That's what he does really well. And he's a very patient hitter and really pesky hitter as well. So I think you bring that bat into the lineup, you bring his defensive versatility, you're going to help fill a lot of holes. And I think I kind of view him the same way that I viewed Jamai Jones last year when we were talking about him bringing Jamai Jones up, but Terrin Vavra is a much better hitter and a much better overall player than Jamai Jones. So Vavra is the kind of guy that you want to have as your everyday utility guy at the major league level. He's going to be a major contributor.
Yeah, and he might be that long term, right? When the Norbies and the Westbrook's and all are up and Joey Ortiz and stuff like that. But I mean, for now versus what we have, run him out there at second base every day until he proves that he can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can check out those pieces over at BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com. All 4 are up now, along with the other great coverage that goes into the site. Be sure to hop on the message board while you're there, joining the discussion with readers as well as some contributors to the site. And before we wrap up this episode, Bob, Nick, any final thoughts? We've discussed a lot of things today.
Yeah, that was a lot. Shout out to Bryan Baker for joining us. I love having these guys on. Hopefully we give them the on the Verge touch that Spencer Watkins got. We had Spencer Watkins on, had a fantastic debut in the big leagues. Orioles brought him back again for next year. We didn't even mention Spencer Watkins in our starting pitching preview stuff. We messed up there. But no, shout out to Bryan Baker for joining us. That was a lot of fun and cheering for him.
Yeah, wide assortment of topics we talked about today. Had a lot of fun. Yeah, Bryan Baker was great. Didn't know what to expect with I'd never seen him pitch other than the clips that Nick has put on our Twitter. So that was cool. And can't believe we're going to sign Carlos Correa. Let's get this lockout ended. I'm excited.
Well, we'll be back next week for our first episode of March. And in the meantime, continue to follow us on Twitter at BSL on the Verge. For Bob Feldman and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Sped, and you've been listening to On the Verge.